We are recording.
Okay, perfect. So,
I can't read this. Your name is, again?
my name is Bogdan Andriyev. So, I know it's difficult to pronounce, so...
Yeah, I'm terrible with that. And the name of your project?
So the project is called The United Humans. And the idea is based on new emerging technology of decentralized identity. And this is the identity that is rooted in decentralized ledger technologies. So basically in a blockchain. What it enables, this decentralized identity, it enables so-called self-sovereign identity. And what it means that basically, in simple words, a person who controls this identity has ultimate control over its digital identity. So basically, if you have your digital identity, no one beside you can control it, right? For example, right now, if you have identity, so let's say Facebook account or a bank account or telephone number, or even when you own your domain, you are not in ultimate control of that digital asset, of that identity, because either it's a Facebook account or bank account or telephone number or a website, it's not controlled by you. It can be taken from you by Facebook, bank, or a telephone company, or I guess I forgot the name of that organization who controls DNS servers. ICANN or something like that. But anyway, now when this standard of decentralized identity emerges, and we can create identities that are absolutely self-sovereign in the digital space, there is a proposal to create the organization of the United Humans. So now when we have these self-sovereign identities, the question is, why can't we, humans, on a global scale, cooperate in a direct way, right? Right now, on a global scale, the cooperation is done through intermediaries, right? Through representatives of national states.
Bogdan, can I make a suggestion before you continue? Are you familiar with screen sharing, using Zoom and screen sharing?
Yeah, let me try. Yeah, I see it.
Because we're recording this, so we can actually record the screen as well, so it's easier for people to follow later.
Okay, sure. Okay, let me share a second screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, works.
Do you see it well, or you see it like partially? Let me try to share another screen. Okay, I will stop sharing this because I guess maybe. Okay. Okay, do you see the presentation?
It didn't switch yet. No, it's still on the other one. It says Zoom. Okay.
Do you see it now?
Yep, now it's here. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So the United Humans. So basically, in simple words, the analog, right? The organization like the United Nations, but without intermediaries of nation states, and the direct cooperation between humans. What this organization is going to do is going to well, protect human rights in first of all in digital space, right? In physical space, it's not that simple to protect. We need the help of governments, but in digital space, the insurance, to make it certain that human rights are protected, we can do it basically ourselves, in theory. So the question, the biggest question, how to do it? Well, and why now? Why it was not possible earlier? Why now? Because basically because we have blockchain. It enabled self-sovereign identity and self-sovereign money. And the way, so even before blockchain, we had end-to-end encryption. We had, for example, PGP technology, and it would be the question is why it was not proposed earlier, right? Because there were no way to finance such organization, to fund such organization. And the proposal here, now when we have blockchain, we are able to have self-sovereign money. And based on this money, we can allocate part of this money into the funding of the United Nations organization. So I'm a little bit over all of the places. Maybe you already have some questions about what I've just said.
Firstly, I should just say hi, Bohdan. Apologies I couldn't make it at the top of the hour, and apologies I didn't get you a link in time, but it's great to see you here and sharing your vision. So just wanted to butt in and say hello. This just to situate this for everybody else on the call. Bohdan emailed us mid-January, I think it was, basically saying that doing United Humans, checked out Digital Life Collective. There seems to be a lot in common, got some shared values, some sort of shared aspirations for how the future might be slightly different from the present day's car crash. And so we said, yeah, you should come on and we can exchange some notes. I've seen this stack because Bohdan was good enough to attach it to the original email. So at that point, I'll shut up and see if anyone else has got some questions based on what you've just been hearing from Bohdan.
So thank you, Bohdan. So from my end, can you tell me a little bit about the development status of this? Is that on the active development? Is that a conceptual model you're developing here? What's the state of this?
Yeah. So exactly, very good question. First of all, the question: what is the state of the development, and why do we do it? So what are we going to do with this? What is the purpose, the practical purpose of the United Humans? So there are services of the United Humans. Right now, they are called valid book services. And these are digital services that enable human to cooperate in a better way in digital space. So these services are identity, so the service to create and manage sovereign identity. Statement service, so basically a service to create digital documents and digitally sign them. Arbitration service, I will explain a little bit later. Wallet service, this is to send and receive money. So blockchain tokens of the United Humans. And probably one of the most important services, it's a social networking service. And this service was the origin, the reason why the United Humans idea appeared, right? Was created. Basically, what we currently have in current internet, in current digital environment, services that are built on attention trading model, on a business model that is based on capturing attention and then abusing this attention, right? Selling part of that attention to advertisements. And this business model to advertisers, and this business model incentivizes different abuse. So first of all, this is abuse of attention, abuse of psychology, skewing different social processes, democratic process. So you're probably all familiar with critique about Facebook. So in simple words, people hate Facebook, people hate social networking service. And the question is why? Is it because of nature of social networking, or in digital world, or this is because this social networking was created or skewed with abusive business model, attention trading business model. And the proposal, the hypothesis of Valid Book is that actually we can create humane, useful for people, a social networking service that people are going to like, right? So the idea is that no, right now a lot of people do not like social networking services, but they can be actually substantially improved.
So your stack says, Bohdan, that you have the proof of concept done, which given the breadth of the vision you just described, sounds awesome, because there are definitely just look at the screen you're sharing there at the moment. That's quite a lot for one team to bite off. I guess to a certain extent you're assembling existing open source technologies into that POC rather than coding from a blank sheet.
Well, this POC is of course not completely done. This is mostly typical website based on usual centralized web technology. And right now I have to sign in, but let me find this key to sign in. But it's even not the point to show you how the website works. Why I'm here, right? And what I wanted to show you and what I wanted to discuss. The general idea, the proposal to create the United Humans organization, why it needs to be done in practical sense, to create better Facebook, to create better social networking service. How to do it? By issuing identity-based money. So basically, blockchain token that is based. So the amount, the quantity of token is based on a digital identity that uniquely represent living human individual.
So I guess I think Joachim was coming from the perspective where, and Joachim, you're big enough to speak for yourself, mate, so please jump in if you think I've got the wrong end of the stick. But everything you've just described there, everybody on this call is definitely going to be nodding, going, absolutely. You won't find many people here advocating Facebook or surveillance capitalism or the degree of centralization in general in our digital world today. And what we're trying to work out is two things. Mm-hmm. What could it look like instead? A trajectory that would do our societies justice and do our human dignity justice. And secondly, how might we get from the status quo today to there? And actually that second question turns out to be a real pain in the backside, because actually there's a lot of entrenched interests to maintain it just as it is. So people are fighting in the opposite direction. People with far greater bank balances are fighting to keep it as it is, as opposed to move it to where it needs to go. And I guess we're interested in understanding whether you are aspiring to develop all the technology that would represent that more beautiful future, and then do an ICO to raise people's awareness of it, or whether you need to raise the ICO to build it at all.
I'm not talking about ICO at all right now, but the question of funding is the key question, is the core question, because all the technologies that are needed to have humane digital experience are already here, right? So we have end-to-end encryption, we have basically usual web services, web technologies, and even we already start to have technologies like Solid that would enable decentralized data hosting. But actually, this is not the question. This is not the problem, because if you look at Wikipedia, right, it's a beautiful service. It's a great service, humane encyclopedia of open encyclopedia of all human knowledge, and it works on centralized usual web technology. So the question why we have in some places, especially I think in social networking space, inhumane attention, psychology, abusive design. Why? Because we have incentives for this. We have this attention trading business model at the base of these services. And what I am saying basically that if you want to create this more beautiful future, we need to find incentives for people to build humane digital services. And where to find these incentives? So basically where to find funding to do these services, because Facebook requires around $5 billion per year to be maintained, right? To continue development it and maintain. So how we can find this money to create better Facebook? And my proposal is based on blockchain tokens. So this is the core idea. This is the key that makes it possible. So we all know that we have Bitcoin, right? Blockchain token. This technology is now kind of trivial. To create tokens is not a problem. And what we have right now in crypto space, cryptocurrency space, is a competition between different currencies to decide who's going to be the one, right? Who's going to win and take it all? What currency? Most probably it's going to be Bitcoin, but the game is still open, right? And the key to this game is network effect. The currency who is going to have the biggest network effect is going to win. And Bitcoin was first and probably is going to win. They say there are a lot of different other aspects, but this is, I think, the most important one. And what I'm saying that this is not really very good, and it's not the most useful as it could be in general for humanity, for all humans. If we can create money that are distributed more fairly than Bitcoin, then we can, and in more direct fashion, more directly to people and more equally, right, to people, then these money are going to win, right, and they are going to be like the money of humanity, or a native money for the internet, global money. And then we can take part of this money at the beginning. In front, we would say that, okay, 10% of this money are going to go to the organization who issued this money, and use this money to develop and maintain core cooperation services.
Is that a little bit of a cart and a horse issue there? Because you need you need the money in order to deliver the value, and therefore people are usually reluctant to part with the money before they can get the value. How are you going to do that? Because it could be
so thank you.
400 or 500 engineering years.
Sorry, I'm just jumping and interrupting. Sorry for that. So the question is chicken, egg problem.
Chicken and egg. That's better. That's better than cart and horse. So, you're right. Yeah.
Like how this money are going to be popular, and why they're going to be popular, especially when we have like thousands of different cryptocurrencies, and already 10 of them are very popular, and Bitcoin is the most popular and the first one. This is the idea of kudos, right, of this cryptocurrency. If we say that if we can create money that are going to be generated daily in the amount of living human individuals. So let's say right now we have around 7.5 billion people on planet, and we have very precise estimates, forecast how population of the planet is going to rise. So we say, okay, so let's say today we have 7.5 billion people. So we can generate 7.5 billion coins and distribute them. But distribute them to who? To those people, to be more precise, to digital identities. We can distribute them to digital identities, and that's where it ties to decentralized identity idea. So if we can create this centralized identity that uniquely represent humans, then we can send to them this generation of daily generation of money. And this creates incentives to create your digital identity and prove that this digital identity uniquely represents you as human. So on the practical example, let's say today we talked on this meeting and decided, okay, let's create this cryptocurrency that is going to be generated every day. Every day we are going to generate 7.5 billion kudos, some tokens, and send them to all humans in open fashion. So one coin to every human. But how can we send this money? So we say, okay, we create this identity service where all people openly can come to that service and create their digital identity, and then they will have to prove that that digital identity uniquely represents them as human individual in the digital space.
Mm-hmm.
If they can prove this, then we send to that digital identity their share of daily generated kudos, these tokens. So I propose to call them kudos. So let's say today we have 10 people who proved on that service, who created that digital identity and proved that that digital identity uniquely represents them as humans. So at that day, we take 7.5 billion kudos, divide that amount by 10, so it's going to be 750 million kudos, and send this amount to each human, to each digital identity that represented human. So this, at the next day, someone will hear about this and say, okay, there is a new digital currency that is distributed in this way, and it's open to receive. Let me create my digital identity that uniquely represents me as human and receive my share of kudos. So on the next day, there is going to be maybe 15 or 100 people. Let's say it's 100, right? So if it's 100, each digital identity that represents human is going to receive 75 million kudos. So,
what's interesting is hearing someone like yourself talk about such an exciting vista, if only because you're actually talking to a bunch of people who not infrequently join calls and meet new people and try to sell them an incredible vista, right? We're all very enthusiastic for this vista. And so we're always, in the best possible intention, always just trying to, spar with each other to find out, what works about this particular vision, what doesn't quite hang together so well. So if it sounds like all the questions I'm banging towards you are negative, it's not supposed to be that as well at all, because the vast majority of me is very positive to everything you have to say. But
let me just briefly interrupt you and tell you this, that one thing: be as negative, as critical toward this idea as you can, because it only is going to make it stronger, or make it fail faster, and
Good. And then we work in the same spirit. That's fantastic to hear. Thank you. Actually, I've just noticed you're scrolling through Rebooting Web of Trust.
Yeah, because
are you going to be there this weekend?
Yeah, I'm going to be there.
Oh, me too. There you go. That's cool. Well, you can definitely continue this conversation then, because one of the things that was just popping into my mind there is a little phrase that my friend and colleague here, Michael Linton, who's on the call but muted at the moment, likes to say. Michael was, I guess, the genesis of open money. And Michael, does the phrase go something like, anyone can create their own money, it's getting other people to accept it that's the challenge? So
yes, that was Hyman Minsky, an economist in the 50s and 60s.
It's now you. I've just attributed it to you. Take it.
All right. Hyman got there first.
Yes. So I guess as you're explaining, Bohdan, about kudos, I'm thinking, okay, how does it accrue value? Because of course it has the value of monopoly money to begin with. Where does the value? Yeah.
So actually, I've just explained, but let me put it more strongly. Why it accrues money? So where money takes value. They take value from scarcity and from network effect. So the more people believe in them, the more stable, the more popular they are. And Bitcoin, within cryptocurrency space, Bitcoin has the biggest network effect. And why this money, kudos, let's call them kudos, why that they are going to be popular? Because they are distributed in this way. In what way? They are distributed every day. Money, all total generation of kudos is divided only between those digital identities that have at that day proof that they uniquely represent people. So that's what I said. That let's say today we have 10 people that have these digital identities that uniquely represent them as humans in the digital space. So at that day, each of that 10 people are going to receive 750 million kudos. That's a lot. That's 10th of total planetary generation production of kudos per day. So it creates immense, huge incentive for all other people to join and receive their share of kudos. Because if they didn't join at that day, their share of kudos is going to people who joined and who proved that their digital identity uniquely represent them as living human individual in the digital space. So that's how we solve this chicken egg problem, and that's how we make people use them.
What's the difference between your airdrop, as it's become known in the cryptocurrency world, and your airdrop? It's not an airdrop. This is not an airdrop. This is in a way it is airdrop, but it's not. We just distribute to whoever wanted, right? Whoever put their address or email address, and we just send some tokens. No, every day there is going to be a total production, and that total production is going to be divided at that day between those digital identities that proved that they uniquely represent them in the digital space. And then, of course, everyone can create such money that are going to be distributed in this way. But first of all, those who are going to do this first will receive a brand and will receive recognition as the first money, and that are distributed in this way. And then the reason, like, why do you want to support this money or that money? Well, because this money are going into the creation and the development of humane cooperation services. First of all, humane social networking service. Bogdan, now I know I'm going to see you at the weekend. I'm going to shut up, because then we can have a good proper chinwag over a cup of good coffee or perhaps a glass of beer. I'm also cognizant that I joined the call quarter of an hour in. So there's two things I'd say. Firstly, are there other questions for Bogdan based on what you've heard so far? And secondly, were there any other agenda items that you wanted to cover off before the top of the hour?
I would just like to reiterate, we're preaching to the choir here, and there are so many projects in the identity space today, and there's a lot of things that I like about what I'm seeing in your project. That I was wondering how well the token represents strong identities, or represents the value of strong identities.
Okay, so I do not clearly understand what you mean by strong identity, but I guess probably the question is how we can make sure that that identity uniquely, I underscore, uniquely represent a human individual. So this is the question. If there is a way, if there is algorithm that will allow us to prove that some digital identity that is, by the way, self-sovereign, so no one can take it from the owner of that identity. So if there is the way to prove that some digital identity uniquely represent human, then the kudos, this business model of distribution of money to digital identities that uniquely represent human is possible. And then it is possible to basically to fund through this business model creation and maintenance of humane cooperation services.
Thanks.
Any more for any more?
I have a few questions.
Go, Eric.
Okay. Some of the issues that come to my mind are, well, there's key management, like are people individually responsible for maintaining their keys to access their tokens? And you can ask them one at a time.
Okay, so this is the question of management keys to identities. It's solved through social recovery and through custody. So when you have self-sovereign identity and you do not have social recovery and you do not have custody, yeah, you run into the big problem that you can lose that private keys that control your identity, and it's not recoverable. So that's why we need very well way to recover these keys, and it's possible through social recovery and through custody.
Okay. Now, the other one is the dilution of value, because the early people will have a lot and then it'll dilute over time as more people join. I just wonder if people have analyzed that model.
Yeah. So there is going to be an inflation, and well, I think the price of kudos is going to be established accordingly. So people, the thing is that it's known how many kudos are going to be at every day. So then market basically is going to estimate what the price of kudos is going to be, and there are links in presentation to this estimation. But the thing is that, for example, Bitcoin has limited supply, so it's 21 million Bitcoins, and kudos are going to have also limited supply for the next, so the proposal, right, for the next 100 years to have it's going to be around 400 trillion kudos. So because there are quite precise or maybe very precise forecasts how many people are going to be for the next 100 years. And based on this, this is the forecast of the United Nations. We can agree to have that much kudos and distribute them. And then after 100 years, this algorithm may be changed in some ways. So, for example, to distribute, to generate not one kudos per one human, but maybe 2 or more kudos. So this is the question of how to not kind of punish future generation, because this generation is going to receive all the kudos, right? And regarding the question that some people who are going to be the very first, that they will receive a lot, and it's not fair. It can be mitigated in 2 ways. First of all, to start distribute kudos after there are around maybe 10,000 or 100,000 or 1 million people. They still will be lucky, but that was open and everyone could join and have it, right? Yeah, so.
Okay. Now, would this system have any ecological advantages over other Bitcoin systems, like a lower carbon footprint?
Well, this is the question how blockchain is going to be, or on what blockchain, on what decentralized ledger technology these kudos are going to reside in. So this is about, is it going to use proof of work, consensus algorithm, or some other? So far, my proposal, my understanding was to create it, to go the simplest way, to create it as a ERC20 token in Ethereum. So it's going to be still based on proof of work, and it's still going to have a footprint on ecology. But there are a lot of developments. So the thing is, with this proposal, with this idea, is not to concentrate a lot right now on technology. Like, of course, technology makes it possible, but it's not about what technology is there, but how we as humans can cooperate on global scale. And if we abstract from that, we can discuss. But what makes it practical and interesting, that now we already see that it's kind of possible. It's probably possible, and we can start to play and start to make it, right? So back to that proof of work question, there are some hope that proof of stake or other technologies are going to work. And as we decide in what blockchain we are going to have this kudos, we can decide, okay, let's have it in proof of stake type of blockchain.
Okay. And my last question, so I'm thinking ahead, I envision like having API calls into your system to verify identity, and having other systems managing data that's based on a response from your system that proves that the person is who they say they are. So you will have API calls for developers to build on top of it?
So regarding API calls, this is going to be a web service. So of course we can have, and probably we will have API calls to our system that some other applications can have, call and receive some data. So for example, about the digital identity that uniquely represent humans. And we can do it right now, right? But even more interesting thing would be if it's created in distributed way, so based on that solid technology, where everyone keeps his own data, and then there is like, so how do we know that digital identity, some digital identity uniquely represents living human individual, like living person, living human person? My proposal is that it's only can be done through graph analysis. So there are digital, like it was done in PGP Web of Trust. So we have digital identities, and some of them or all of them claim that they uniquely represent humans, right? But I can go to, in real life, in physical world, I can go to my friend, right, and say, okay, so tell me what is what digital identity represents you. He can tell me, and I can vouch for his digital identity, right? And we can, and he can vouch for my digital identity. And in this way, we can create web of trust where people vouch for each other's digital identities. To be more precise, they vouch for that digital identity uniquely represents living human individual that they know.
I have a hope that might be the case, but the technology falls way short of being able to affect that at the moment. The original PGP vision for the Web of Trust effectively required people to have key exchange parties where they could meet up in person and swap the keys. And well, as we all know, the enthusiasm for that key exchange process wasn't overwhelming because, well, I don't know anybody who did it. It's hard. It's hard, that key exchange problem.
So actually, I wrote a small paper, like just an invitation to discuss this on rebooting Web of Trust in Barcelona. So I will send the link right now. The thing is that actually Web of Trusts, webs of trust work. So there is a common critique that Web of Trust, PGP Web of Trust didn't work, PGP didn't work. But actually, for people who wanted to play in PGP, who thought that the effort to use PGP worth it, it actually worked. And all people who are into free and open source software and who into cryptology or who are very worried or paranoid that someone can hack their usual web provider, they use it, and it's quite successful. So actually, Web of Trust. So what I'm saying that actually webs of trust work. It's only that PGP Web of Trust failed not in the sense that it didn't work. It failed in the sense that it didn't gain wide adoption. And why it didn't gain wide adoption? Well, because it was too difficult. It was too cumbersome to use. And if we create a Web of Trust that is easy to use, then it will gain wide adoption.
Well, let's hope we can work out how to make it easy to use this weekend in Barcelona, because it remains a stubborn engineering challenge. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and actually, why CCG group? Why credentials community group? Because this group develops verifiable credentials standard, and this standard allows to create verifiable credentials, so digital documents that can be cryptographically verified, that can be used to create this Web of Trust that is going to be visible, simple.
Hang on a minute, because the Verified Credentials Working Group is meeting directly after rebooting Web of Trust. I don't know if you're staying on for that. I can't, but one of my colleagues is, which is fabulous. But you need identities in order to do verified credentials. You don't have verified credentials in order to do identity.
No, I mean verifiable credentials are needed to make simple Web of Trust. So you need identities to create verifiable credentials, but because you need someone who will sign verifiable credentials. So you need to understand who signed verifiable credentials. For this, you need identity, and you need a simple standard to create digital documents for simple Web of Trust.
I still think you need identity before you can do verified credentials in a distributed manner. I can't see how you can do verified credentials without having identity, because you just said someone signs it. Well, who signs it if you haven't got identity?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I confirmed what you are saying, that in order to have verifiable credentials, you need identities. Why? Because you need someone, so you need identities to sign verifiable credentials, right? You have digital signatures kind of under verifiable credentials. And who created these digital signatures? Well, identities.
So again, a chicken and egg thing. You can't build a decentralized identity system with verified credentials if verified credentials need established identities.
No. So you can have identities. First, you create digital identity that is self-sovereign, but that didn't prove that they uniquely represent humans. For that, you need web of trust. So first you create identity that is rooted in a blockchain, and it's just digital identity. It's we don't know if that digital identity represent human or not. And then you use that digital identity to create verifiable credentials. Well, basically documents that you use to vouch, right? That you basically you say, here's the document. I signed this document. I vouch for Philip Sheldrake digital identity, that this identity uniquely represents him as living human individual in digital space. And this is a very simple document.
So long as we meet up and do that physically, because otherwise it might be spoofed.
I can show you, like, I can share my screen and show it.
But Bohdan, I'm going to suggest, as these calls always finish at the top of the hour, so we've got about 30 seconds to go, but I'm looking forward to meeting you in Barcelona. May I suggest that you can share some contact details here with everyone, so if they've got any questions that occur to them after the fact, they can get in touch. Of course, it would be stupid of me not to invite you to join the collective, of course, where you can hang out with lots of fabulous people like us, good looking too. And equally, if anyone wants me to put a question to Bohdan or find out some more stuff this weekend, you know how to get in touch with me, and I'll happily proxy on that basis. Adrian, are you in Barcelona too?
Yes, and I just turned on the camera because you said good looking.
Hey! All good looking people are going to go to Barcelona this weekend. Awesome. I'm looking forward to catching up with you, sir. Marvellous. Right, well, in that case, any last AOB before we call this call and thank Bohdan for his presentation? Anything else that anybody needed to convey?
In terms of PGP not working, certainly looking at Keybase a lot stronger now, and I'm saying, you know, if why not accept that as a self-sovereign identity, where there's already hundreds of thousands of identities and people with followers. I mean, it's a public identity. It's not that private. It's not. It doesn't.
Jim, you can
It can be combined with web of trust information outside of the Keybase.
Well, the thing is that you have to have biometrically unique identities in a decentralized system. This has been discussed. If you're going to hand out, welfare payments in India, for example, you have to set up Aadhaar to make sure that only one person gets their daily allocation of kudos, and that people don't sign up for two sets of kudos per day. And, the way the Indians set it up was, totally centralized and subject to hacking as well. But if you're going to build something like that in a decentralized way, you have to have these, the way that the PGP keys are handed out has to be kind of biometrically prevent duplication, or cryptographically ensure deduplication, whether you want the positive or the negative.
Yeah,
and that's a problem in itself.
Yeah, I was just saying that in terms of key management, out of the 300,000 Keybase members, you may only trust 2 of them, but that you have biometrics on. But it's an effective way of managing identities and pseudonyms that you have that are at least tied together in some way.
Yeah, no, Keybase is a good thing. I think Keybase is a fundamental step in what we're doing.
Yes, so Valid Book and the United Humans took the idea of to use social networks, so to bootstrap this graph, Web of Trust graph, from Keybase.
Well, gentlemen, unless anyone would like to stay here and talk longer, I'm going to have to scoot because I have a hard stop. Bohdan, thank you very much for joining us today, mate. Awesome that you got in touch.
It was great to talk with you, and I hope to talk more and in RWOT in Barcelona and maybe here also in this group. So
awesome. I'm going to go. I don't think if I hang up that it'll hang everybody else up, but otherwise, any other business before I shoot?
No, just a question for Jim. If you want to stay a minute, I think we can stop the recording too. But thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Yep.
Thanks a lot. See you soon.
See you.